All right, we're live. I love going live. I've been doing some pre-recorded videos here recently, and I much prefer doing live streams. I need the pressure of being live. We're going to talk about an epic troll. It's unbelievable. So Gavin Newsom, if you guys don't know, I'm sure you do, but this is his thing, right? He's going for president, and we're not even a year into Donald Trump's first term. And Gavin Newsom is already testing the waters to see if he can make any leeway, to see if he can make any progress. You know, what's the sentiment like about him being president? And I'll tell you that in most instances, I'm sure that it's not looking good for him. I haven't seen a ton of polling, but I mean, we gotta ask, who else is there going to be? Who else do the Democrats have? They don't have anybody type A. They don't have anybody masculine. Gavin Newsom's about the best they can do, and he's just a greased up, slick politician. But Donald Trump trolled the fire out of this guy. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if it was Donald Trump. In all honesty, I'll play the video here in just a second. We got some folks coming online. Be sure to check in. Let me know where you're watching from. But let me know, do you guys think also, is Gavin Newsom going to be their guy in the next presidential election? Is Gavin Newsom going to be the Democrats' guy? That's what I want to know, and I would love to get your all's opinion on it. I think he is. I mean, there's like 3 years left. Well, I guess about a year and a half, 2 years before the campaigning really starts. But Donald Trump's already starting to troll him, and it's not just the hat. So I know you guys saw the thumbnail. And it was this hat that was mailed to Gavin Newsom. And he talked about it right here. I'm going to go ahead and play the video so you guys can listen to it. I'll get right into it.
Affirming our independent commission, and we're calling for a national independent commission as well. Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. Said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. They'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. Said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said in a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
Okay, so that was 100% rhetoric. We can see what's going on in the economy. We know the economy's doing great. He's not a free market guy, even though that's how he made his billions and billions of dollars. He is a free market guy. That's his whole thing. You know, Charlie Kirk was on CNBC, and if you watched any of that, he made a valid point that Trump's not an ideologue. Trump just cares about what's good for America. And he makes Republicans mad. He makes Democrats mad. He makes everybody mad. But his motives and what's driving him is to improve the country. And you can't deny that. So he said, the most corrupt president in American history. Okay, I feel like Democrats really don't have a grasp on reality in this instance. But I say all this to say that Donald Trump mailed him a Trump 2028 hat. Well, one of his supporters. So it wasn't Donald Trump. He said one of his biggest supporters. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was a big influencer or something. But they mailed him a Trump 2028 hat. Hilarious. But Trump also trolled them because during this big event that he was having, right? So this is Gavin Newsom's event that he was touting for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. And, everybody was amped up about this. So he was holding a thing for redistricting is what this was. And they're saying, of course, he said that, I think I might have pulled up the wrong link here. Yep, I did. So he had this big event. I'll show you the crowds for it here in just a second. But while he was while he was having this, by the way, we know that this redistricting stuff, now that it's happened in Texas, it's going to happen in every Democrat state. All these states chock full of Democrats. This is just going to be the next thing. Well, what does Trump do during Gavin Newsom's big event? He says, all right, well, we'll just have ICE go out here and arrest people. So ICE arrests illegal immigrant outside of Gavin Newsom's LA rally. Oh, does that not just speak volumes to the trolling? Send him a Trump 2028 hat, then send ICE to go arrest a guy outside of his rally. One illegal immigrant, it was only one guy, was detained outside the Democracy Center at the Japanese American National Museum in downtown Los Angeles, where Governor Gavin Newsom announced California's plan for redistricting efforts. Footage showed Border Patrol agents taking a man away in handcuffs. U.S. Border Patrol Sector Commander Gregory K. Bavino. Nice troll, Gregory Bavino. Well done. Very well done. I mean, he's enforcing the law, but come on, the optics are what the optics are. It was hilarious. And so Newsom spoke on federal immigration enforcement outside of his event, telling the crowd, where are we? At the Democracy Center, and right outside at this exact moment, dozens and dozens of ICE agents. Donald Trump, you think it's coincidental? Donald Trump's minions, Tom Homan, tough guy, decided coincidentally or not that this was a location to advance ICE arrests. Well, California in general is a place for ICE arrests because, I mean, they're loaded. I mean, Californians will tell you. I mean, they're loaded with illegal immigrants in California. Where it's like anything. It's any kind of law enforcement. You know, where are they going to go? Where's ICE going to go to find people? Where all the people are, wherever they've been shipped off to. You know, we used to do that it's like in war, which, you know, Donald Trump was calling it an invasion. And in many respects it was, but you go where the people are. You don't have to worry about policing the areas that are safe, or at least not as much. You don't have to worry about looking for illegal immigrants where illegal immigrants aren't hanging out. That's why there's probably not a big ICE presence in Martha's Vineyard. You probably haven't seen a lot of ICE agents near Barack Obama's house and Michelle Obama's house. I'm assuming they live separately these days. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, it's California, dude. You let him in, ICE is going to arrest him. That's how this game is played. And Donald Trump just used it as a massive troll. Oh, I love it. Now, we have to talk about the crowd because the crowd's here. This is something, if you want to know, you know, Gavin Newsom testing the waters. Do people like me? You know, I mean, Democrats are going to like a Democrat no matter what. It doesn't matter who it is because they're not necessarily free thinkers. But Gavin Newsom's like, you know, let's test the crowd. Let's see what people think. And they publicized this event apparently for a very, very long time. And let me tell you, the crowd came out. It came out in mass. Absolutely in mass. Tens of people. Tens of people came out to Gavin Newsom's event. A lot of cameras. There's about as many media people as there were watchers, as there were attendees. I mean, come on. And they're posting, Adam Schiff was posting something about don't poke the bear, and they were talking about the California flag. This is the support that he was able to muster. Now, part of this is the venue. Although, if you look here in the front row, right behind the American flag, there's some empty seats. And maybe it's that they were just trying to, they didn't want to go above and beyond because, let's do a small venue just in case we have poor attendance. Well, they had poor attendance, and tens of people came out to support good old Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you guys listened to it, but Tucker talked about it. And I'm kind of frustrated with Tucker, but that's a story for another day. And Tucker was talking about Gavin Newsom and how he's such a successful politician because he can sit there and lie to you without his blood pressure changing or, no change to his personality. Gavin Newsom can just sit there and lie, and he does it so seamlessly and so perfectly. But I think the broader picture is that Gavin Newsom is an example of a typical politician who's going to do the identity politics nonsense that everybody is tired of. And the next person I want to talk about is somebody I've actually never really talked about on this channel, but it's Jillian Michaels. And she's done a really good job with her podcast. Kudos to her. She's getting some huge guests. She seems like a truly genuine person, and I think that's why people are attracted to, I mean, she's a beautiful, but I'm saying attracted to her content because she seems like a truly exploratory person. She's trying to figure out what's going on in this world. And she made, I don't know, this isn't her debut, but she made her first controversial debut on CNN. And she was talking about, they were talking about the Smithsonian exhibits that they have put up. And these Smithsonian exhibits are, I guess you would say, they're part of a deeper problem in this whole racial division thing, which is a core component of the Democrat Party. I think we all know that. It's part of the identity politics stuff that I can't stand, and I think everybody's tired of. So let's listen to this first exchange. Then I'm going to play the second exchange, and I'm going to tell you what this has produced in our society, what this has produced in public discourse. Let's listen to this real quick.
Some of the things that are being
slavery was a bad
okay,
thing that was to talk about.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. Let me start at the beginning.
Have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay.
Like
he's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not.
He's not. No.
Okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you look
at slavery,
let's talk about the fact.
I mean, slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
Okay, so this is what you're in for with these clips. She never gets the opportunity to get a word in edgewise. This is why I would, if I ever became a big podcaster, a huge podcaster, I wouldn't do mainstream media. I mean, maybe I wouldn't say never, but you're not going to get your point across in these short little exchanges. But no. It's the system of white supremacy. It's the system of white supremacy. Blah, 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 blah. They can't stand somebody pushing back against their worldview and their religion, which is identity politics. Let's keep going here.
Do you know who was the first race to try to end slavery?
Wait a second.
Well, what's controversial?
I didn't know this was controversial. And see, when they look over at the host, that's what they're doing. They look at each other, right? They look away from the person they're having a conversation with because they're looking for validation. They say, I'm in friendly territory. She is the enemy. She's the one who is questioning and challenging our worldview. So they look around at each other, right? Yeah, give me validation. I need validation. Not sit there and have the conversation with the woman and address the issues. No. Look for validation elsewhere.
This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised. Do you realize that
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history,
okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that
it
was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba because white people bad. Not because of Castro. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you walk in the front door, the first thing you see is a gay flag? Okay. Have you looked?
So Jillian Michaels is, she's bringing up a point that insanely valid. The Smithsonian has these exhibits that blame everything. All this oppression, all that stuff is on white people. And, look, you can talk about the evils of, which I agree with, the evils of the Jim Crow South. You can talk the evils of slavery. But she's correct in that only 2% or less than 2% of the American population ever owned a slave. And they whitewash the fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans died in order to end slavery. It was a horrible, horrible thing. But it goes on. There's more to this. It's the straw manning and it's the virtue signaling. And then the host, when pushed into a corner, decides to just end it altogether. Listen.
Has been an installation there. Is gender testing fair in sports? Does that, and then it goes on to talk about how it's complex to do gender testing in sports. It's not complex. It's basic science. That's untrue. It's XX chromosome, XY chromosome. That's sports. Is it fair to have biological men competing against biological women in sports? No. But why is this in the Smithsonian? So it's been completely captured.
First of all, I don't.
And
think
it's totally partisan.
First of all, we don't have time to litigate all of this.
Of course we don't, because then you're going to lose the argument. And everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Excuse me.
It's like, oh, I can't believe you're trying to suggest, that slavery
just to
is
be
a good
clear,
thing.
you brought up race.
No,
this was a conversation about the arts, and you brought up race.
It isn't.
You brought up.
But the whole
hold
point
on,
of this is that the issue.
See, cut her off. Cutting her off.
You brought up slavery. And you brought up the question of whether. Hold on.
Did.
You brought up the question of whether or not slavery in the United States is about race. The answer is yes.
Of course. I did not say
in the United States
don't
is
straw man
about
my argument
race.
because that's not what I said.
So what are you
brought
talking
up
about?
slavery, and what I was talking about is that this isn't really about that. When you make every single exhibit about white imperialism when it isn't relevant at all, that is a problem. So when you're talking about Cubans leaving Cuba and you make it about white people bad, that's not accurate.
Can I just say,
Okay, look, she did a great job. I mean, I have to admit, she goes into the lion's den, and kudos to her because she seems like a very, very sweet person. I would really like to have a conversation someday with Jillian Michaels. So hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell, and maybe someday this podcast will grow enough where I can go and have a conversation with Jillian Michaels. But in the meantime, we're going to sit here and talk about how she did a great job there. But this is the pushback. This is kind of what I was talking about early on. This Trump effect is people tired of this nonsense. And it's what is going to hurt people like Gavin Newsom if they don't step out of the normal Democrat talking points. Jillian Michaels is probably very much a centrist politically, but she's actively pushing back against the Smithsonian exhibit that blames everything on white people. And I will tell you that one of the most destructive things, in my opinion, is probably going to be controversial for a lot of people because he's huge on the internet right now. This is how you get somebody like a Nick Fuentes, who gets a ton of algorithm boosting, who gets a ton of traction, because he is, and I'm going to do a separate video on this altogether, but he's the response, and I don't agree with him, obviously, but he is the far extreme response to the left's far extreme stances. And the far extreme stances on the left have become the norm, but on the right, Nick Fuentes is still seen by enough people on the right as what he is, which is a racist person. But the truly, extreme ends of it found someone to latch onto. And it's a destructive thing for the America First movement. It's a destructive thing for the MAGA movement. It's not a good thing. Our response is not supposed to be that. And we on our side of it, because we are free thinkers and we all have different opinions, I can say that some of the things he says are accurate, but he uses a lot of facts and statistics in order to push something that I believe is a false narrative. He's more than free to say it, but I don't agree with it. But that's the offshoot of this leftist racial identity politics that they have been pushing for decades. And Nick Fuentes is a 26-year-old who grew up in that system. So he has now become a popular figure, and I'm not down with that sort of thing. But the identity politics doesn't stop with Gavin Newsom. You got the Mamdani effect, and this is, if you want to know how he's doing, Zohan, I think it's Zoran. Is it Zoran? Zohan? I forget how you say his first name. But Mamdani in New York, he's getting the backing of all the big folks. All the big wigs are backing Mamdani. Listen to his reception he got in a coffee shop.
Sorry, I want something to eat. I would like something to eat. Let me tell you something, man. You are not welcome in this island. October 7th, Jew hater. You Jew hater. Hey, Mr. Mamdani, can I talk to you?
Mr. Mamdani. Don't mess with a New Yorker, man.
Excuse me. You hate Jews. You hate this country. You hate this.
Not too happy with Mamdani. And I think that if I remember correctly, this guy was a grocery store owner, I believe. And this is something I've talked about on this podcast. I talked about it on the Braver Than the Rest podcast. In multiple places, he's talking about having these grocery stores that are state-run grocery stores. And that, look, we all know, we can watch videos. Just go back and watch videos from Russia during the Soviet Union and see what a grocery store under socialism does. It runs dry. It becomes empty. or you get one choice, and that choice is a day away from expiring. That's what you're going to get in socialized grocery stores. That's what you're going to get in New York. And people are ticked off about it. They don't like the fact that he's a communist. They don't like the fact that he is his ideology, you guys can know. He just said he's a Jew-hating. There's a lot of Jewish people that live in New York. Think about what you want about Jewish people. That's your own proclivities. But you have to be willing to represent la-di-da-di everybody. And when you are in the position that Mamdani is, or takes the positions Mamdani does, you're going to make a lot of enemies. It's not a good thing. And he's towing a similar line. He's in New York. People are testing the waters here. They did it with AOC. They tested those socialist waters, and she became a rock star. Mamdani's trying to be the dude version of AOC, right? He says, I'm going to take it even further. I'm going to say we're going to start making state-owned grocery stores. We're going to fill them up, and if you're at a certain income level, you're the only one that can shop here. We're going to give you free food. We're going to take care of everybody, right? But to do that, again, the argument against socialism, and it's a very easy one to make, it's immoral to steal from people, even if you vote to steal from people. And it's when you replace the free market with state-owned systems, they fail. Every time. Every time. And, that was the weirdest thing about the video. If you guys are just coming on, because I saw a few of you on YouTube, give me a shout out in the comments and let me know where you're listening from. But, we talked about Gavin Newsom saying that Trump is anti-free market. The guy has made his entire life has been about the free market system. He's a free market capitalist. And he's trying to make that opportunity a real thing, a real possibility for other Americans. He cares about, it's not about, by the way, this is the other part of it. He is talking about and is actively improving our economy, improving the circumstance for average Americans. Why? Because he wants them to have the opportunity to be successful. He wants them just to have the opportunity to get a job, a good paying job, and be able to afford a house and be able to afford a car and be able to live day to day with their family and their kids. He wants families to grow. He talked about offering tax credits. I don't think that's been, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's something that they have already pitched about. You get money, like basically a bonus for every kid that you have. Trying to get people to have children again. He's done it. He's got a bunch of kids. He's got a bunch of grandkids. But the average Americans aren't. And he wants to revitalize the actual American dream. Not the American dream that, some people, we talk about home ownership. A lot of people will make the pitch that home ownership and the American dream of owning a home is actually just something to sell, for the banks to make money, right? But being able to have a comfortable living on a good, solid week's work, it's not going to be done by government subsidies. It's going to be done through the free market system, a supply and demand system. And that's what he's trying to revitalize in America. Praise the Lord. Mamdani says, well, the solution to this, it's not free markets. It's we'll take the money that we shave out of the working people's paycheck, and we're going to redistribute that money down to the folks who can't work. I'm okay with that. But won't work. I'm not okay with that. And they fall into the same category. And that's the problem with socialism, is big bloated bureaucracies can't distinguish between the one versus the other. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. There's a revolt going on in grocery stores because they've stopped the sugary drinks. You can't use EBT on sugary drinks. I don't have a problem with that personally. I really don't. Wow. And, here's the other thing, but, Donald Trump, they're going to keep bringing up this authoritarian thing, that he's an authoritarian. That's something that Gavin Newsom mentioned in the opening clip as well. And, let's see. Here we go. Donald Trump, I talked about, I don't think I've done it on this podcast or on this show, but I did on Braver Than the Rest. We touched on Donald Trump grabbing a hold of the DC police and bringing in the National Guard and restoring law and order in our nation's capital. Why is he doing this? He's doing this for multiple reasons. One is because that is the gateway to America. Oops, and you can't see that. Sorry. It's the gateway to our country. When we have dignitaries, they show up. They have staff that show up. Their staff should be able to walk the streets, walk a few blocks this way, that way, and not worry about getting stabbed, having their rental car carjacked, or anything like that. And people ask the question, can Donald Trump do this? And the answer is yes, he absolutely can. There's a lot of precedent. The PCA, which is the Posse Comitatus Act, if I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it says that you can't use military force. Military can't act in a law enforcement manner, but the DC National Guard is directly under the control of the President of the United States. And in precedent shows that the courts typically defer to executive decision making when it comes to this. That, look, if the president decides this is what he wants to do, there is no governor, so he is ipso facto, for lack of a better term, the governor, and he can control the National Guard in the District of Columbia. And this started. Let me see if I can pull this up. Being honest, I hadn't planned on talking about this, but I came across it in my notes, and I was like, oh, you know what? I need to bring this one up. So we're live. This happens. Let me pull up the precedent that I found for this one, because I kind of went on a little bit of a deep dive, because it seemed to me to be, honestly, I questioned it. I was like, is this legit? Can he do this? And as it turns out, yes, it can. And even Grok agreed with me, because I was using Grok for my research. It might be in another one here. Just bear with me for 1 second, and I promise it will be worth it. There it is. Let's see. Precedent. Okay, here we go. So, the U.S. Constitution grants exclusive legislation over the District of Columbia under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, making D.C. a federal enclave rather than a state. Now, we know that Democrats are trying to get away from that. They want it to institute statehood in D.C., and if they do, all that completely upends the legislature. It's massive, massive impacts, and we have to stay away from that. So, however we have to do it, we have to prevent that. And this is the other thing that they want Puerto Rico and other places to be granted statehood. It should never happen. But anyways, precedents include deployments during the Civil War in 1861 in defense of the Capitol, civil rights enforcement in 1957, Little Rock desegregation under Eisenhower, urban unrest in 1968, and 2020 during the George Floyd protest. Do you notice a common thread here when this has been used? It's been used when Democrats start to act up. Who was ticked off about, freeing slaves? Who was ticked off about desegregation? Who was ticked off about a guy overdosing on the street? The Democrats. This has been a Democrat thing, with the exception of January 6th. And in January 6th, Donald Trump offered up the National Guard. Nancy Pelosi delayed and delayed and delayed. And in fact, in case you needed any, reminding of this, here you go. Donald Trump delayed deploying the National Guard on January 6th when our Capitol was under violent attack and lives were at stake. Now he's activating the D.C. Guard to distract from his incompetent mishandling of tariffs, healthcare, education, and immigration. Yeah, that's it. He pulled in the National Guard because he mishandled tariffs. Oh, by the way, if you listen to Scott Bessent, we're going to have to revise the amount of money we've pulled in from tariffs, and not just by tariffs, by the way, but how much they have been how much of a benefit they have been in Donald Trump negotiating with other companies to solicit additional investments in America. Oh yeah, but it's all because of that, right? This is why he's doing it. And then Chief Stephen Sonde. This was the guy. He was if I remember correctly, chief of the DC police at the time, I believe. Ma'am, it is long past time to be honest with the American people. On January 3rd, I requested National Guard assistance, but your sergeant-at-arms denied it. Under federal law, I was prohibited from calling them in without specific approval. She delayed. He said, on January 6th, while the Capitol was under attack and despite my repeated calls, your sergeant-at-arms again denied my urgent request for over 70 agonizing minutes. So Nancy Pelosi lied. The chief called her out. Donald Trump says, well, precedent is on my side, and I run the DC National Guard. I'm going to bring them in. And I just minimized it. I had my notes up and I just minimized it. I hate when I do that. Oh, here it is. So the argument for, and this is kind of what I did with Grok, is I said, okay, give me the arguments for and the arguments against. The arguments for far outweigh the arguments against, but direct presidential authority over D.C., which Donald Trump has, statutory support, the Home Rule Act 740 permits presidential takeover of the D.C. police for 30 days in emergency conditions. Now, what is obviously going to get litigated, that they're already litigating some of this with Trump's use of the National Guard in California, but when it comes to D.C., what they're going to litigate is what emergency conditions, because they reference the 26% decrease in violent crime over the past year. It says that it's at a 30-year low. Now, there's caveats to that. The caveats are that, yeah, more violent crime goes down, but recidivism is up. Juvenile crime, these kids are getting they're committing crimes, young people committing crimes, getting released, committing crimes, getting released. And there's a lot of back and forth on it. I'm still reading through all the specifics, but nonetheless, even on I think it was CBS, I could be wrong, there was a news anchor who was sitting there talking about the they were basically, she was reading the script, and she said, no, in my instance, I got jumped 2 blocks from this building, from this very building. Everybody I know has been either carjacked, accosted, or assaulted, threatened, whatever. It's a problem. It's an actual problem. And yet they gloss over it. Well, Donald Trump says, I'm going to take action. And he doesn't care if they're going to run with the normal talking points. He says, what do I care? I don't care if you say what you want about me. I'm not even a year into this presidency, and I am now the most influential president in American history. And I'm going to keep riding this train, so says Donald Trump. I'm going to restore law and order. I'm going to get the illegal folks out of here. I'm going to leverage tariffs to increase investment. I think I've got the clip here, and I probably ought to show it. Scott Bessent, I think he said that he has, was it 10 trillion? Is that the number? Let me pull it up here real quick. I think that was the number, 10 trillion, I believe. Let's listen to Scott Bessent. By the way, dude's doing a great job. I didn't know Scott Bessent from Adam, and I have to say I'm impressed with the dude, but listen to this.
Tariff income, I've been saying 300 billion, but I think we're going to have to substantially revise that up. So well in excess, 1% of GDP. And then with the new investments, they're the sovereign investments that we talked about. But then in terms of the committed investment by private industry, we're well over 10 trillion.
Wow. 10 trillion in private investment in America. Who did that? Donald Trump. How does Donald Trump do that? He does it by, NVIDIA, the guy that was running NVIDIA, I forget who was talking about it, but he was saying that, he was asked at some forum or something, and they said, what's the best thing that's ever happened to America? Or what's the best thing going for America right now? And he said, President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump worked out a deal, and I don't know the specifics, so I'm hesitant to even bring it up, but if you're a business person out there watching, let me know what the deal was. But it was basically NVIDIA creates these chips. These chips go, I believe, to China. And Donald Trump worked it out so he could work around the tariffs. And instead of paying the tariffs for the goods coming out of China, he's just going to pay the U.S. government directly, essentially. So it works out for everybody. We get the chips, and he gets over on the tariffs, but we still get some money. I mean, it was like this win-win. It's this brilliant use of the system, which Donald Trump understands. And now go back to the first person we were talking about, which is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom doesn't understand any of that. Gavin Newsom doesn't understand any of that. Gavin Newsom is just a politician. And look, I have to be honest with you guys. In 2016, my biggest critique of Donald Trump was he's a businessman and you can't run the government like a business. I was wildly wrong. And admittedly, back then, I was very newly out of active duty, and so I was still institutionalized. This is what I tell people. I have been on this 10-year journey from active duty into the reserves, and then, obviously retirement, and, so on and so on. I was an institutionalized person. I'm not institutionalized anymore. I have broken those barriers. I have broken away from that institutionalization. And when you live and exist inside of a government system, or in Gavin Newsom's case, just inside the government, you are entirely institutionalized, and the way you approach problems are as a bureaucrat, not as a free-thinking, capitalist, a guy who has to do it because the system is, your success or failure is only based on you. In the government, success or failure is just a write-off. Success or failure is a rounding error. It's not your money. Donald Trump was dealing with his money and his success. Donald Trump's a guy who was $900 million in debt. He tells the story of being on the street in New York, he said, with a beautiful woman. Of course, he was with a beautiful woman. He's walking down the street with this beautiful woman in New York, and he pointed to a homeless guy and said, "That guy is worth $900 million more than I am." And she said, "How on earth could that man be worth I think it was $900 million. Maybe I've got the number wrong, but he said that guy is worth $900 million more than I am." And she said, "How could that possibly be?" And he said, "Because I'm $900 million in debt." Donald Trump, he understands this. He understands the risk. He understands where he can take risk, and he knows how to negotiate. No one can deny that. Gavin Newsom cannot. Whatever success Donald Trump has, Gavin Newsom's focus isn't going to be continuing that success. No matter how effective it is, Gavin Newsom or any other Democrat, their sole purpose is going to be to undo whatever he did simply because he did it. And that's what the American people are frustrated with. But in the meantime, he's doing what he can. Making D.C. safe, trying to make American cities safe, trying to get the illegal immigrants out, trying to bring investment in. He's brought in $10 trillion in investment. He's doing the right things. And Gavin Newsom can't even fill up a 200 person event in his home state. And just for icing on the cake, Donald Trump didn't do it, but ICE is arresting people outside of his event. The trolling is it's wonderful. Keep it going. We got 3 more years of this. Keep trolling them. I love it. All right, guys. That's all I've got for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I've had a few of you that have been hanging in there for a while. I appreciate it. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. And hit the comment section. It always helps. Share this to get me outside of this pesky algorithm, especially on YouTube. Rumble's been doing pretty good. YouTube, not as much. All right, guys. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.